What up? I'm back. I don't usually do these things. I can't remember the last time I've done a live streaming video for DFS, but excited to be back. It's your boy Tommy G. Basically, what we're going to do today is we're going to take over the industry. We're going to start. So if you guys like those boring, fucking know-nothing, dribble, drab, fucking horrible, terrible podcasts and videos, you're probably at the wrong spot. If you want to be entertained while actually getting good information, shocker, we're going to be the first ones to do it. So I want to introduce my boys here. You guys are at fantasyguruelite.com. You already know. You're on the site. So if you don't know, you're just a fucking moron. This is uncensored. So if you have any children near you, get them away from you. I will be cursing probably every 7 seconds. Jeff and Thad will probably keep it to a minimum. But let me introduce my boys first. Jeff Collins, you know him. We brought him on for this reason, to dominate NBA, so I could just literally wake up 5 minutes before the show and not have to do anything as far as research. So, Jeffrey, what's up, my dude? Jeffrey, are you there? Can Jeff hear me? Thad, are you there?
What's up, man? You cut out for a little bit there.
I'm there.
I think I heard the gist of it. You're
Yeah,
still
no,
cutting out a little bit, Tommy. But yeah, so super excited today. Super excited today to get started with NBA. Twitter, I was all over Twitter, sending out, stuff from StatMuse, different search queries and stuff, doing a ton of research, stayed up all night. Really excited to play this really tiny slate, but tomorrow is going to be even better, more of a full slate, some better tournaments, I think, but there are a couple $4 tournaments out there with big prizes. I'm really excited to get into that.
Yeah, those $4 tournaments, be careful with. If you guys are having problems hearing me, it's me. It's my internet. I'm actually moving right now, and I got everything all over the place, and I'm very far away from the router. So going forward, I won't have internet problems. It's not the site. It's me right now. Rad Thad, newest edition. What's up, my dude?
Playboy, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm living the dream, baby. You know how I live.
Now, before I say anything, I got to say hi to you from my wife.
Oh, I love your wife. It's Brad, Thad's the only guy in the industry whose wife actually is repulsed by me.
It's really my wife and my sister. At some point in the season, I'll go into a story about that. But I'm gonna have to start doing these things from an undisclosed location, man. She's gonna bust in here like the Kool-Aid man any minute.
Making sure there's no chicks in bikinis behind.
She'll be like, "Oh, Thomas, Thomas, how's Thomas? I don't know how Thomas is, but Tommy's doing all right." Yeah, man, it's good. I'm psyched. Couldn't sleep, man. I can't wait. NBA, it's gonna be great.
Yeah. So Jeff, walk them through what we're going to be doing at Guru Elite. Right now, this stuff is free to everybody. That's just temporary. It's just for the first week. We did the same thing for football, but we have some early bird specials. We got some different packages. Walk them through kind of the lay of the land for those people who don't know what we're going to be doing, Jeff.
Benny is going to be doing the detailed analysis, the game-by-game breakdown and stuff, and really go in depth. That'll be posted early on the site. Later, I will come back with an article covering some of the picks that I like, highlighting some of the guys, and maybe even mention some other guys that are popular being talked about throughout the industry and touch on why I don't like them. But we'll also do cheat sheets on the bigger slates. The thing we're really excited about is the projections along with the optimizer that we worked really hard to get out before today's slate. But all the guys over here were working overtime trying to get that thing up. It's up. Got to take a peek at it. I love it. I only disagreed with one guy on there, and maybe we'll talk about him later. But for the most part, everything looks on point. And I'm just really excited to do all this stuff overall. Of course, Thad's going to be on too, doing shows with me and some articles from time to time. But really excited to get everything going.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be kind of just playing the host role, especially early in the season. I have too much stuff going on with the company, with NFL, with NHL, honestly, also where I've become a god somehow. But realistically, I don't want you guys leaning on me for NBA stuff. It's one of my weaker sports, so I'm just gonna lean on you guys in the optimizer. And Thad, what are you gonna be doing? I know we got you lined up for a lot of Fantasy Aces stuff. You're gonna do some articles. You're doing a lot of shows. Talk about what you're gonna be doing at the site.
Yeah, definitely going to be doing a lot of tag teaming with my man El Jefe. So it's basically going to be the stuff that we usually do, except it's going to be filmed and recorded, sitting around just kind of dudes talking about basketball. positions, sites, just the game in general. Going to be doing a lot of stuff for Aces, which is my second home there, and going to give a little bit of the secret sauce. Don't want to give a little bit too much, but if you subscribe, you get a little more than you expected. So this optimizer, I'm a little afraid, I have to tell you, because if it's anything, and people know it, if I say something, I'm not just like bullshitting you. I'm a little bit of afraid because the NFL optimizer is so ridiculously clairvoyant that I'm afraid if the basketball is anything like it, I'm going to start to get lazy. I'm already lazy with my NFL. I'm just kind of plugging in the optimizer and just taking home the money. So hopefully I can keep my skills sharp and keep up with this optimizer. But yeah, man, I'm psyched about the season and looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we got a 3-game slate today, so we got a lot of dead time on here. We'll definitely get into the slate. We'll hit it up and down. We'll go almost player by player rather than position by position. But Jeff, as far as we get a lot of questions as far as how to use the optimizer properly, because some people just hit a button and hit optimize. I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do it. It's been phenomenally successful, but I think there's other ways to do it. So talk about how you would advise people to use the optimizers, whether it's for cash or GPP during the season.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, it just went live less than an hour ago, so I haven't had a ton of time to play around with it myself even. So can't say that I've mastered the art of the optimizer yet. I do like that there are ceiling and floor projections. It is important that you run the optimizer as close to lock as possible because it is constantly updating. So that's a key. But mainly, I will say that I like to use it as a guide, right? So I talk about how there was a player I disagree with, and I texted the guy who created the projections and the optimizer and everything. I said, look, I'm going to look out for this player today to see if I'm right or the optimizer's right, because it's going to be interesting for sure. But I think it's good to use it as a guide and then plug in your gut picks. Gut picks are real things as long as they're educated, as long as you've done the research and everything. I know, Tommy, you've talked about that a lot, how your gut, when it is educated, can actually mean something and can really fit into your analysis.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times your gut picks, as we call them, or instinctual picks, are really nothing more than kind of subconscious bunches of information that you just can't consciously process. So we do need to trust our instincts. I wouldn't say we want to play too instinctually in the beginning of the year, but as the season goes on, you start to watch a lot more tape, you watch a lot more games. At that point, you probably have a feel for some data that you don't even realize. I'm going to try something I've never tried before here, Jeff, before we go into the games. I'm going to screen share here. So let me just close the porn. Let me close the porn sites here.
This is really dangerous.
This is totally dangerous.
Yeah, this was unscripted.
This is totally unscripted off the cup. So let's see what's going on.
It was uncensored though, right? So
did I do that right or no?
Well, no. I mean, if you take the video off of your screen, then yeah.
Actually, why don't you share?
Huh?
So take the video off?
Yeah, well, as long as your screen isn't showing the video, it's just, that picture of that painting of a painting of a painting of a painting. Yeah.
So if I hit screen share and I go to the optimizer, that'll come off?
I think so. We can try it.
Try it again. Entire screen. Let's do this. Boom. How about now?
There you go. Now we're good.
You see the optimizer?
Yeah.
Look at me, bro. I'm a fucking beast. Trying crazy shit first 5 minutes. All right, so you guys can see the optimizer, right, Jeff?
Yeah, but as long as you're talking is when we'll be able to see it. I'm not going to lock it on you because it'll be locked on you for the whole show. So if you're talking...
So I'll just keep talking through it. So if you're looking at the optimizer up here, one way to use it, and again, we're going to be giving out articles. Jeff's going to be giving picks. I'm having Jeff and Thad on my radio show. If you guys don't tune into it, it's Sirius XM, Sirius 210 XM87. We're not going to give too much on there, though. That'll just kind of be like broad, kind of more commercial picks, and we're going to save the good stuff for the subscribers. But if you guys look here, you could sort the slates by contest. So obviously, on a normal thing, you have the late slate right here, and then you have the standard slate. One of the most important things I would tell you guys, if you go here and you click projected, and there is a video above where the optimizer shows up, kind of like a tutorial, which we're going to put in right in here. So it'll be there for NFL. It's not there yet. One of the big things to do is if you sort these things, right now it's just sorting by projected points. But you can go in here and go ceiling, you can go floor, You could sort by best value. So it gives the projection on, obviously LeBron James is 5.1x. This one's 4.7x. Obviously the positions. If you want to lock someone in, so if you want this thing to optimize and just you do no work, you just click optimize, right? And you'll see that thing squiggle around and there's your team. But what happens is if you decide, let's say, I don't want Kawhi Leonard, I don't want Patty Mills, you're going to X those out and those guys will be in the excluded players list. If you want to bring them back into the main list, then you click their names and they'll appear back in here. But let's say we optimize this again real quick. And this is intuitive, so this will be making changes up until lock. So it's not like on a delay. Let's say I decided I want to optimize again without those guys. Click the button, boom, it just took those guys out. Let's say I wanted to eliminate a whole team. I could basically take the San Antonio Spurs out, optimize without it. And then if I clear this and I turn around and let's say I want to use the optimizer, but Jeff loves Damian Lillard, Thad loves Kyrie Irving, and Benny loves Carmelo Anthony. Now once I click those three names, it's going to lock those three players in, and then it'll optimize around those three players, okay? So we've spent a lot of money on this optimizer. We've had other companies offer to buy it from us already. It's been extremely successful. But again, like anything else, and let me try to unshare here. Like anything else, it's still an optimizer, so it's not going to work every time. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have up days and down days, but I think you'd agree that stuff like that's probably a little better for more cash games, right, Jeff?
Certainly, and like I said, even a guide for GPPs, that's a great way to do it, is figure out who the top GPP plays are by me, Benny, Thad, whoever, plug those in, and then build optimal around that.
Yeah, so I can't believe I just learned how to screen share. You guys are fucked. Once we get to subscribers only, I am 100% going to pull out porn sites, and you're just going to see, big dicks laying across the screen as we do this. So let's start going game by game. We'll have some time to talk game theory and stuff like that. So actually, we'll do position by position. So we'll break this down by position. We'll stay a little bit more site agnostic today. Like I said, I have done this much NBA research, so I got my pen and pad out, and I'm going to be following you guys. So let's start it off at point guard, Jeff. What are we looking at tonight?
Well, at the top of the list is Steph Curry. I mean, we might as well start with him. He is going to be pretty chalky today. He is one of the best players in the league, of course. An MVP. He's facing the San Antonio Spurs, who are a good defensive team for sure, but he's pretty matchup proof. This game is projected to be, I believe it's a 9.5 point spread that Golden State is favored by. So there's a little bit of concern of blowout, but when you look at the other spreads too, like the Cleveland game's 9.5 points, and then the Utah game is 5.5 points. So it's like you're not really worrying too much about blowouts and stuff here. You just want to get the best players in your lineup. I do think that Steph is the best point guard option today. Our optimizer loves him. The concern that people are going to talk about is, well, Durant's there now, so he's going to soak up some of the usage. And now all of a sudden Curry's upside is gone. But as I wrote up in my article today, I think that the way that they're going to stagger the rotations is going to make it so that Steph Curry and Durant both have a ton of upside. So I think close to half of their minutes are going to be played without the other one on the court. And when Steph's on the court, he's mostly going to be playing with Draymond a lot, who isn't going to eat up a lot of usage. Durant is going to be playing a lot with Klay Thompson. So, of course, you're going to have the starters on the court a lot, especially in crunch time at the beginning and ends of quarters maybe. But I think that Steph still has a ton of upside, suffice to say. What do you think, Dad?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think you make a solid point about the rotation and in terms of them possibly staggering it as the season goes on. I think they learned their lesson last year in terms of chasing history and not winning the title. So, they have this phenomenal team. If they break more records, great. But they've already come out and said that they have no problem resting guys as the season goes on. As far as tonight goes, I think I'm even more inclined to play Steph because, in prior matchups with San Antonio, Kawhi actually covered Steph, which made him a difficult guy to pick. With Durant on the team, Kawhi's going to have his hands full with Durant. So I think that, that's going to leave Curry up against a weak backcourt in terms of defense for San Antonio. So I think even though, first official game with Durant in a Golden State uniform. They would like nothing better for him to come out and tear it up. I don't think that's going to happen against Kawhi. But so I think Steph Curry is the guy today.
Yeah, and we got a couple other guys right there. I mean, obviously on a short slate, normally on these 3-game slates, one of the first things I'd want to tell you guys out there, I know we're supposed to just sit here and fucking tell you to play DFS every day all the time so that, you need us more. But the reason I brought on Jeff and Thad is because what Thad said in the intro, they're the most straightforward, straight shooting, transparent gangsters out there. And you guys who know me know whether my picks are good or bad, I'm always going to give you exactly what I got and tell you exactly how I feel. I'll light up the different sites. I'll light up people in the industry. I don't give a shit. So one piece of advice I would give you, if you think you're winning the $4 294,000 person tournament tonight with your one lineup, you are not. So you're actually probably have a very slim chance of cashing. I think most people are going to put in 150 lineups into that. It's going to cost $600 to do so. So I really would be very careful playing those. I'd try and, if you're a small player putting in one lineup, I'd try and stick to the single entries and stay away from those on a short slate because people can cover every base. There are a few other point guard options here today. So, for a 3-game slate, we do have some intriguing point guard options. Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, McCollum's point guard eligible on DraftKings. To talk through some of those before we get into the one or two of the value ones, Jeff.
So Damian Lillard is interesting to me because he's at home. Last year, he had a 10% increase in production at home versus on the road. So that was a thing. There was an increase over his career production. So we don't know for sure if that's real or not, but more recent data is more valuable than data from years ago. So that could be a thing. But what was interesting also is that Lillard is playing against Utah, a slow-paced team. You would figure that's not going to be very good for him in general, but he actually played really well against Utah last year. He averaged, I think, something like 45 FanDuel points or something. Like he can have really big games against Utah. George Hill now is on Utah. He's a pretty good defender, but I think that he's a guy where you're not as much concerned about the defender as the pace usually. So I was just really encouraged to see him play really well at a slow pace. So Lillard for me is totally a tournament guy. Like I think that you can lock him in and expect quite a bit of upside out of him.
Is that what you're doing, Thad? Are you going real high at point guard today? You got anyone else in there?
Yeah.
Outside of the value?
I'm going high at point guard. I agree with what Jeff said with regards to Lillard. I think as far as, same game tournament option for me that's intriguing is George Hill. These dudes, they gave away the 12th pick in order to get him. So they got tired of a bunch of young dudes kind of screwing up the backcourt. So I think Hill, in this setting where there are a bunch of Utah guys injured, in the past he's shown that with elevated usage, we're used to this guy being an off-the-ball kind of guard. But I think tonight he's someone that if you plug in your tournament, you won't be disappointed.
Interesting. And Jeff, I know you have someone down on the value side that we talked about last night that you have some intrigue in.
Who are you talking about? Brandon Jennings?
Brandon Jennings, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is Rose is starting, and he's supposed to play a bunch of minutes tonight. But that said, I do still like Brandon Jennings. 4,500 on FanDuel. If he plays 20 minutes, he should at least come close to paying it off. And he's going to be a lot lower owned than these other guys that we've talked about so far. I do like Thad's call on George Hill because he might even be lower owned than Brandon Jennings just because Brandon Jennings had so much preseason hype and everything. But those are the kind of guys that you're going to need to mix into your tournament lineups in order to differentiate a little bit. I will say that Jennings is a lot more risky than Hill. So, Thad might have talked me into Hill a little bit, or at least mixing Hill into a couple lineups.
Well, let me ask you guys this.
Yeah,
I haven't built the lineup yet. Thad, how hard is it to build the lineup today? How's the pricing on these different sites? Is it pretty easy on the 3 games?
Super easy.
Yeah, so you probably don't need it, right?
Yeah, it's super easy. You don't need, truth be told, especially with Favors being out, you don't need, in order, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And slates like this, when it comes to a 3-game slate, I usually don't play at all, with the exception of like if I get a free ticket or something like that. It's a long season. There's no edge. Everybody's going to be rostering the same guys. It's going to be some random dude that goes off that nobody has. So I saved my bankroll for like a Wednesday. But as far as roster construction, cash games are going to look incredibly similar. GPPs are going to, by default, look incredibly similar because people are going to pivot to the obvious plays. One thing about Brandon Jennings is that dude makes me nervous, man. Gets an Achilles injury in the NBA, it's basically a career killer. You know, those dudes never, ever, ever in the history of you name me one dude, I don't care if it's Dominique, whoever, those guys never come back the same. So he might games where D Rose is injured, which we know is going to happen.
No.
But on nights like tonight, I'm going to probably pass.
No, I absolutely agree with those assumptions. The only thing that convinced me otherwise, I was watching him play this preseason. I mean, he was ridiculously good. So, you know, I'm not super concerned about the injury with how good he looked. Like, he looked completely free and loose and unlimited. The big concern that I have is the minutes. Like, if Rose really is going to play all the minutes he can handle, then that's going to be really tough for Brandon Jennings to pay off if he's going to play 15 minutes or something. So you need him to get over 20 minutes probably to pay off here. Let's talk about Rose, though, too, because
that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, so he's a guy that some people are going to consider. I don't like it at all because he hasn't had a ton of practice time with his teammates or anything. I tweeted out a StatMoose query where I looked at his fantasy points by month over his career, and he's just a notoriously bad starter also. And, you know, some data guys will say, well, that's not really relevant. But for basketball, it definitely is because guys show up out of shape, you know, not in game shape, and eventually just have to work their stamina up to where, you know, the mid-season form, like that's really a thing in the NBA. So I'm not saying that Rose is out of shape or anything, or is usually out of shape, but for whatever reason, he's been a slow starter. And I think there could be something to that. So I'm not in love with Rose today. Of course, on a short slate, he's in play. He's going against Kyrie Irving, one of the worst defenders, and should be playing a lot of minutes. It's just that I'm probably not going to go that direction. There's a lot of point guards that I like on this slate, even considering how small it is. But what do you think of Rose, Thad?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, short slate, so all hands on deck, but I would have to put Rose pretty low on my list in terms of playable guys for a couple of reasons. You know, he's a guy who glorious for getting injured in the preseason. So I think it really benefits him to be able to say that he's had whatever legal issues and not have that happen to him. So I think with Brandon Jennings playing well in spurts, they have no reason to really give Rose all the minutes he can handle. So I don't think he's going to play a lot. You know, it's his first game with the new team. He's still not the number one scoring option on the team. So they don't need this guy to carry the load. So, you know, all things considered, he's still going to be popular just because he's D Rose. So I think you can spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, we're going to be adding some chat features to the site shortly too. If you guys want right now, you could follow on Twitter. I'll keep my eye on Twitter if you guys have any questions, and we'll kind of bring them onto the show if there's anything you want to throw out. If you guys want to follow us on Twitter, I'm at Tommy G, at rad_Thad1, and then at Jeff K. Collins, and the company is at Guru Elite DFS. I see some people talking shit to me already, and I'm gonna get your ass after. I'm gonna wait till we get to the positions. Never fuck with the guy with the mic, because I will call your Twitter handle out, bitch. So let's go. Let's go over to shooting guard. Let's go over to shooting guard. Obviously, I mean, when I look at it, you know, McCollum's a guy who I loved last year just from upside purpose. But you know, the matchup with Utah, does this scare us at all, or are we not really worried about this with the pace that Utah plays at? That
I'm not too concerned. I think especially because the usage for Portland is basically backcourt, period. It's going to be those two, Lillard and McCollum. And on top of that, in addition to being the starting shooting guard, McCollum is the backup point guard. So even when Lillard's off the court, McCollum's usage is just going to go up. So, you know, he took a huge step forward in his game last season. I think he's at a good price pointer on the industry for tonight's game, and I think he's going to play well.
All right, Jeff.
I'm a little concerned about the price on FanDuel. He's the most expensive shooting guard, $6,900. You can get Clay for $6,500. I prefer Clay on a raw points perspective, so give him to me at a discount, and like it's a no-brainer. In cash games, I still think, like Thad said, McCollum's going to play well. Like that makes him totally in play for tournaments, especially when you're fading Clay, and Clay is extremely dependent on his jump shot falling. Doesn't do much in terms of assists or rebounds or anything, especially with Durant in the picture now. His rebounds are going to be impacted even more. So very shooting dependent player. You can absolutely fade him in tournaments, but I do like him a lot. Rodney Hood is another guy too that I like more than McCollum. So we talk about this Portland backcourt as great options for fantasy. The problem is they don't defend very well. So Rodney Hood is a very good option. At 5,400, he might be the best point per dollar play at the position.
Interesting. That
now, my only concern about Clay is, while he's a good guy, I was a big fan of his dad playing with the Lakers.
See, we're old school, Dad. Me and you got
old school.
None of these little fucking 25-year-old nerds who don't know what the fuck NBA was until 10 years ago.
Yeah, people are like, damn, his father played for the Lakers. My problem with Clay is that NBA goes, he's got a fantastic mentality, but for daily fantasy purposes, he is a little too unselfish for me. He's a guy who is willing to kind of give up some of that role to make Durant feel a little more at home if it means the team winning the championship. And especially for a shooting guard, I want a dude who's going to just be shooting this ball. So I'm going to wait and see as far as Thompson, especially now that he's stepped down a peg in terms of scoring option and by default usage rate. So that's the only reason why I'm not as high on Clay tonight as I am on CJ.
And let me chime in with this here. I know it's not necessarily positional oriented, but Jeff, you're the Golden State Warriors guy. You've been following them. You've been studying their rotations and everything. Do you think that because it's opening night and because all eyeballs are on Golden State and because of everything that's gone on with the offseason with the signing of Durant, that this is going to affect the game flow specifically for tonight rather than for the whole season? Because I kind of think I might agree there that maybe tonight might not be the greatest night to play him just because they're going to force the ball to Kevin Durant to shoot a lot. Like, do you think that's going to happen tonight?
I absolutely believe in the narrative that they're going to have Durant shoot a lot. With everything that went on in the offseason, all the criticism he got and everything, we've seen in spots like this already that he shows up, whether it be the first Olympic game, the first preseason game at home. Like, he's been showing up in the spots that you'd expect the narrative to be strong. And we laugh off narratives in most sports, but in the NBA, it is the most true that narratives affect players because they have a lot of control over how many times they shoot the ball, whereas and can control their opportunities, where in the other sports, you can't really control your opportunities. Like, you can't get more at bats because it's your bobblehead day or something, Yeah,
and just to not to cut in on you here, but the narrative thing is important. I do agree with you. I think in NBA it is by far the most important sport for narratives, not only for what you're saying, but because it's one of the few sports where you actually can do significantly better by trying harder. Like if you look at baseball, a lot of times when you try harder, there's more pressure, you do worse. I mean, look at the score of the postseason games going against the same pitchers as in the regular season. If you look at football, that's where the kind of, you only have so much control of how much you can touch the ball. So, even if you're running your route harder, your quarterback still might not get you the ball. And, in all those sports, it's kind of the same thing. Hockey's not a sport where you're trying harder because it's really more of a, ballet. It's a scripted play. But in NBA, that's true. Because we see guys take multiple plays off during a game, and just watch Boogie Cousins on any night. You'll see these guys walk up and down the court for a good 2-3 minute stretch. Where if there's families in the arena, or if they have a big game, or if it's their bobblehead night, maybe that's the one I really don't buy into as much.
Yeah,
like they're literally going to try harder, and they're going to have their teammates on their side to force them the ball too. So I agree 100% with what you're saying there. Who else at shooting guard here, Jeff, are you looking at? Is there anyone else, or is it pretty cut and dry to you to really narrow it down to those three?
It is the most cut and dry position, probably. There are some more point guards I want to talk about maybe at the end of the show. Yeah. But I will say that I want to bring up Patrick McCaw, another Warrior. He's min price. I'm not saying to play him.
2 shows in a row.
Huh?
2 shows in a row.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring him up all season. He's good.
He's good.
And yeah, you're not even gonna play him tonight necessarily, but I want people to watch him when he's on the court, so that the next time I bring him up and say to play him, they're like, "Oh yeah, he is good." Because
I will be watching him all night, 100%. That's for
I'm
sure.
just saying, like, people don't know who he is unless they play preseason NBA. Like, then you know then you already know he's really good. But I don't want to catch people off guard later in the season where I'm like, all right, we're playing Patrick McCaw tonight, and they're like, who's Patrick McCaw? Like, go watch him tonight. Be prepared. This isn't the time to use him probably unless you're building 150 lineups tonight. But keep an eye on him.
Okay, and let's go over to point guard. If you have a couple point guards you want to touch on, let's do it now. So
I was just going to bring up quick, like, we didn't talk about Kyrie. I don't think Kyrie had an amazing finals. You know that, Tommy.
Won me a shitload of money.
Yeah, so he's certainly a guy to keep an eye on. He's 7,100. Like, I'm not positive he should be cheaper than Damian Lillard. Like, he seems like a value play to me tonight going against Derrick Rose. Not a good defender. Cash game guy. I think Kyrie Irving is a great option. Could take a huge step forward as a player if he plays at the same level or close to the same level he did in the finals. I like Patty Mills as a GPP play. Who else? I think that's pretty much it. I don't have a ton of interest in Tony Parker. I saw someone on Twitter ask about him in the up and pace game. The problem is Tony Parker's just old now. He doesn't have a ton of upside these days. Worked really well with Tim Duncan. They had a lot of chemistry together running the pick and roll. Not sure how it's going to work out with Pau Gasol and LaMarcus Aldridge there. They kind of just want to take a wait-and-see approach with that.
Yeah, just to answer a couple of the Twitter questions here. Does the algo update live on the page, or does the page need to be refreshed for it to update? I'm not exactly sure on that one. I would just refresh it. I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's going to update live on the page. But just so you guys know where to go with questions, because it seems like everyone just comes directly to me with everything from tech support to NBA questions. I am not your NBA guy. So go to anything revolving around the optimizer. Go to @MLB MLB MODEL. That's Rob. He's the one who designed this thing. He's the one who worked to deal with Swish and all the other companies that are out there involving this. Anything NBA oriented, leave Thad the fuck alone, man. Thad don't want to deal with you. Go to Jeff Collins. All right. So @Jeff K. Collins. He even loves season-long questions. He loves answering start-sits on your season-long teams.
I have no idea why you're telling people to come to me with NBA questions. I'm probably not going to answer them, so this is dumb.
No, I'm kidding. Don't bother with that shit. But
don't ask me questions.
No, but do ask him if you have anything about the NBA product.
But yeah, really, the reason we don't answer questions on Twitter is because people pay money for this information. Like, I'm not just going to answer someone's question when they ask me on Twitter. Like, the answers to the questions will be in the articles.
Right, and in the videos. And that's what I'm saying. I was joking around with that there.
Yeah.
But if you notice, I ignore a lot of your guys' stuff on Twitter too, because you're paying for this and we're not giving it out to everyone. But I'm saying, as far as like NBA products, or are you guys going to have this, or what time does this show start, or how do I subscribe, that type of stuff, direct that Jeff. He's the head of NBA who's going to be handling all that. So I'll handle the rest of the bullshit. But let's move on to small forward here, unless you got something else at the guard position, Thad.
One guy that I think could be, a lot of, like I said before, a lot of guys are going to pivot to the same value plays, but I think one guy who could be a low-owned value guy, especially at shooting guard, even though he's not going to start today, is Jonathan Simmons. Most people are going to go to Kyle Anderson. He is starting today, so I certainly get it. But I think considering the lack of depth in the backcourt at San Antonio, Simmons is a guy who could really produce today. He played well in the preseason. He had that little injury thing next to him because he was dealing with some injuries for the last couple of games of the preseason, but he is back today. So he's a sneaky guy that I like.
So that would be more for like your $4, 200,000 person.
Yeah, that's like your $4 tourney who's going to be, 5% owned maybe.
Right.
Who
and
could certainly give you 5x, 6x minimum price. So yeah, I would go with him.
Okay, cool. Let's move over to small forward. I think there's one person that you like, right, Jeff?
Well, actually, this is probably the deepest position. There are quite a few guys I like. The best tournament play, though, is Durant. I'm not going to, I'm sure I'm going to sound like a homer again, but I tweeted out all the data that backs it up. Durant is pretty much the most matchup-proof player in the NBA. I looked up how he's done against Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James, the two best small forward defenders in the league, and he actually averages more actual points per game against those two guys than when he plays the rest of the league. So you don't have to worry about matchups with Kevin Durant. We talked about the narrative here. The other narrative that is super real is that he says he wants to average a double-double this year. So he is going to be going after those loose balls that is extremely effort related. There are plenty of 50-50 balls, 33-33, 33 balls that whoever goes and gets the ball is the one who gets the rebound. And if Durant is making it a point to try and average a double-double this year, you want that guy. I think that he is underpriced right now, 9,300, and a really good GPP play because I think LeBron's going to be a little higher owned.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Who do you guys think? Because it's the Kevin Durant homecoming. I know it's the Spurs, and if this was the second week of the season, Durant would be a really sneaky GPP play. Just from, there's no one who knows, how the NBA donkeys think better than me because I am one. So, just to kind of think about it, I just imagine every donkey out there going, oh, Kevin Durant, first game of Golden State, click, click, click. So, Thad, what's your take? Who's going to be, is LeBron going to be significantly higher owned, or do you think Durant might surprise people with ownership?
I think Durant's going to surprise people with ownership for sure. I think we talked about narrative in NBA, and I think that goes for daily fantasy as well, especially when it comes to ownership. I think, though, it's not necessarily a bold call, but I think LeBron is going to actually be the top scoring small forward or fantasy player, period, tonight. Imagine they're at home. They're going to have that ring ceremony. And they won the championship, and all people can talk about is this super team in Golden State. And so LeBron's going to come out. I think he's going to go absolutely ape shit tonight. The only thing that would make him even more pissed off is if he went to DraftKings and saw that Durant was priced higher than he was. I'm trying to see if I can get that to him so he can just come out and be pissed off. So I think
with the amount of money they've spent, I wouldn't be surprised if he already knows.
Yeah. So the thing is, with the way that some values have opened up, a lot of people will have both of them on their rosters, and rightfully so. So you don't have to choose one or the other. But if we were to choose one or the other, I'd probably go with LeBron tonight.
Yeah. And Jeff, take me through this mid-range here with Gordon Hayward, Evan Turner, Carmelo Anthony. Gordon Hayward isn't even in, right? I think he's out.
No, he's out.
Kawhi Leonard. Who are we looking at in there? Because after that, it kind of drops off to the Iguodalas and the Harklesses of the world.
I like Kawhi better than Melo. As I mentioned, LeBron is one of the best small forward defenders. I'm sure he'll be matched up with Carmelo quite a bit in this game. Kawhi gets to play up and pace against the Warriors. We know the Warriors ran the second fastest pace last year, third fastest in the preseason. This year, they're going to be running a lot. So Kawhi's going to have a lot of work cut out for him trying to defend Durant and stuff, but he should have a really solid game. I like him quite a bit. But LeBron is the cash game guy. I agree with that. That's the guy that you have to probably project for the most raw points. It's just that I think Durant's going to be 5 to 10% lower owned and really close to LeBron's projection, and he's cheaper. So that's why I like him more.
All right, Thad, what about you in that kind of mid-tier?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Kawhi as well. I mean, we talk about guys being matchup proof, and Kawhi is matchup proof. He's even worse than matchup proof because he also brings it on. He's the best. I'm going to give him the best defensive player in the league. So he brings an added twist to being matchup proof. So I'm certainly there with Kawhi. I think Carmelo makes a nice GPP option because for some reason, historically, he usually plays well against Cleveland. Now, with D Rose on the team, I think that's going to mess things up maybe for the first couple of games of the seasons, but I still think Carmelo's a nice GPP play. I think as far as a $4, FanDuel tournament option that should be low owned, I like Mo Harkless a ton. Most people might not realize that he's actually starting tonight. They may think that Evan Turner is going to be starting, but it's really Mo Harkless. He had a shoulder injury he battled back from. He's cheap. He'll be low owned. He's in a good spot. So that's my GPP play today.
All right. Jeff, what do you think down there?
So the chalk is going to be Kyle Anderson. He'll be the chalk value, guys. 3,500 on FanDuel. He's in the starting lineup for Danny Green. Should play a bunch of minutes. I like him a lot. Probably should plug him into your cash games, unless you can get like both James and Durant in there along with just the rest of the lineup you like. But if you need value, then you've got to go to Anderson, I think. So that would be the one guy. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to like down cheap there. Do you see anything that I'm not, Thad?
No, I think some people will plug Evan Turner in there. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
He's not starting, and his role really hasn't been defined yet. But, yeah, I'm with you. For cash games, I like Anderson. If I were making a tournament option, single bullet GPP, single entry, I'd leave him off. There's a couple of other pivots in terms of value that you can go to.
Sure.
All right, cool. Let's move over to power forward here. So what are we looking at?
So I teased that I disagreed with one thing on the optimizer, and it was Draymond Green's projection. They actually have the Draymond Green scoring 34 FanDuel points at 8,200, the second highest total for power forwards. I think Draymond's going to have an awful year. I think he's going to be the guy that's impacted the most with the Durant signing. So, yeah, I don't think I'll have much Draymond tonight. I mean, I am probably going to max enter the FanDuel tournament if it's still not full by the time the show's over. But so I might have a little exposure in him there. But if I were doing like 5 to 10 lineups even, I'd have 0 Draymond Green. I really like Kristaps Porzingis a lot. He's my favorite guy. I think that he's the most talented small forward in this slate. And, has a ton of upside long-term, but especially in this matchup against Kevin Love, I think that he's going to do really well. Plus, he has the upside against Kyrie Irving driving the ball with his blocks. So, legitimately, there's a huge game out there for Porzingis if you can get it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to show you one thing here, guys. Just because we field so many optimizer questions, I'm just going to go here real quick. I'm going to screen share. Can you see my screen, Jeff?
Now I can. Yeah.
Okay. So another thing on the optimizer here, you heard Jeff say he feels like the projection's a little high on Draymond Green. Guys, I know it doesn't have to be a Bible, especially at the beginning of the year when we don't have much data out. I mean, I really think, humans will tend to dominate a machine, especially early on. The more data that comes out, the more reliable the machines become. So if we write in Draymond Green here and we don't think he's going to project at 35, give me a projection for him on DraftKings, Jeff.
27.
That's exactly what I had before too. So I could just write 27, enter, get Draymond off here, and now it'll actually recalculate where maybe I don't want to take him out of the lineup, so he's not in any lineups, but now he's in there at 27. So you can actually adjust these projections. Just be careful because if you do refresh the screen right now, I believe it's going to remove that. So now we'll go to Draymond at power forward, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be back to normal, right? So make sure you leave this screen open and then optimize and re-optimize. So just something there for you, a little trick if you guys did want to use that. Let me get this stupid screen share thing off. Am I off? Yes. All right.
Yep.
So let's go through some more here. Obviously at the power forward position, get rid of late swap. If you guys weren't aware of that, just tweet at Benny Riccardi. He'll tell you all about it. But they did eliminate late swap. So from what is it even going to show that you still can X them out? Is it going to be like a live final, like where they show the X still, but you can't change it, Jeff? Do you know?
Yeah, they'll do that.
Okay.
I'm curious though about what that did of Draymond.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to kick over there. But just be careful, guys, because there is no late swap. We wanted to get that in. So, Thad, your thoughts on Draymond? And we do have a lot of multiple position eligibility now, too, which I was telling you. So a lot of these guys are eligible at both on a site like DraftKings. So, Thad, your take on Draymond and then any other forwards you really like.
Yeah, to kind of tap into what both you guys just said. With regards to Draymond, I think the preseason was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of an expected decline in his usage, his scoring. He barely took any shots in the preseason. I think that's going to continue. So I'm really projecting that he's not going to be, one of the top tier guys, especially in the beginning of the season, unless or until someone gets hurt. So I certainly agree with Jeff, especially in terms of the optimizer. I think one other thing, kind of another shameless plug for the optimizer, touches on what you just said, Tommy, in terms of the changes in the position eligibility. You know, when you hit that optimizer and you see LeBron James at power forward, helps you realize that, you know, you're not really tied into using certain guys the way that you did last season. Number of guys using LeBron James at power forward on DraftKings who didn't use the optimizer tonight is 0.
Right.
Guys they're just not going to think about that. So just kind of another way you can use the optimizer as a guide.
Yeah. And who else do you like here at Power?
Kristaps is my main man. Obviously, I might be wearing my Heat colors, but I am a huge Knicks fan.
Nice.
From back in the day. So Kristaps is my main guy. I think with the news that what's his name is Favors is going to be out. You know, they did say that Boris Diaw was going to start. I do think that that's a mistake in terms of people flocking to him. I think Trey Lyles is still the guy. The whole team is shorthanded for now, but so I think Lyles will still get his usage and his minutes. So I think as far as a low-owned, you know, $4 GPP guy, I think it's Lyles. But, you know, just remember, especially on DraftKings now, you can use LeBron at power forward. You can use Durant at power forward. So it opens up a couple of different options.
Yeah. Jeff, who else are you liking at Power?
So I wrote up Trey Lyles. I think that he's a great option. That's a good call by Thad there. 4K. You know, people are going to be off of him now because he's not starting, like Thad said, but that's a mistake. His projection hasn't really changed just because he's coming off the bench. If anything, his usage is going to be a little bit higher because he probably won't be playing as many minutes with Gobert, and that might be specifically why they didn't start him, so that they can use Gobert down there and then switch off, get him some rest, and have Trey Lyles be a little higher usage. So I like that call a lot. Great tournament play, and you can save a lot of money that way. Kevin Love's a somewhat interesting option. If this was a bigger slate, I'd have zero interest at all, but we're dealing with the 3-game slate, and this position isn't as deep, so you can go there. I'm not in love with it, though. Thad, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Love is basically a guy that his role is going to stay the same. I think, if anything, having a ring now is going to take a lot of pressure off of him, so he may not feel the need to kind of really elevate his game. You know, last season we saw him kind of sit toward the end of the fourth quarter in a lot of games, and I think that that's going to continue. So I think unless someone gets hurt or you hear a specific announcement that, you know, that LeBron or Kyrie is going to be out, then I think Love is best left for tournaments. I think my absolute positive favorite power forward tournament play, though, and only people who are going to roster this dude, with the exception of a handful of people, are going to be people listening to this video, is Al-Farouq Aminu. The dude he's dedicated power forward now. We already know he can rebound like no other. He's going to be playing closer to the rim. I think that he's a guy who can get you a cheap double-double on a nightly basis, and I don't think anyone's going to have him tonight.
Damn, Thad. You guys fucking made me enter NBA now. I wanted to wait. Now,
dude, don't do it. Don't.
I'd already did.
GPP, bro.
That's what I'm doing. That's why I like some of your Simmons and Harkless. I'm like, oh, all right, Thad's on these.
Yeah.
So if I had to ask you a question I'm going to ask you this, Thad, because you don't want to say you like Aminu, and then Jeff, I want to get your take on Aminu. If you had to choose between Trey Lyles and Aminu, who do you like better for point per dollar on DraftKings?
I'm going to go Aminu only because I think he's going to get more minutes. And, you know, if something freaky happens, like, you know, Diaw starts and he starts tearing it up, then they may use Lyles less. You know, I think, like I said before, Aminu is a better rebounder than all of those guys. If anything, Lyles he needs to improve his rebounding. So that's one of his weaknesses. So I'm going to go with Aminu.
Okay, Jeff, what's your take?
On Aminu versus who?
Aminu versus Lyles, and really just any other power forwards there.
I like Lyles quite a bit. The one interesting guy to me, again for cheap, is David West going against his old team, San Antonio. He's going to be a pretty big role player for the Warriors. Not sure exactly how many minutes he's going to play tonight. Might be under 20. But at that price, he still has a decent chance of putting up a good game. And, if this turns into a blowout, maybe he plays a few more minutes. So I don't think it's a crazy GPP play, and he'll be super low owned. Our projection model also likes him quite a bit too, so that's reassuring. But yeah, that's pretty much. I'm trying to scroll and see if I am missing anyone, but that's pretty much it, I think.
All right, cool. Let's
Yeah,
get over.
not to interrupt, but that David West call, I think, is actually a really good call, especially for tonight. I think the last time I saw Golden State was favored by 9. I think it's going to be way over before the fourth quarter, because that front court for San Antonio, I know it seemed like Timmy Duncan didn't play a lot of stuff, play a lot of minutes and have a big, huge role, but his defense is enormous. These guys are a sieve on the front court. Pau Gasol, LaMarcus Aldridge, these guys don't play defense well at all. At the backup, they got David Lee. Dude, that dude sucks, man. I don't even know why he's on the team.
He does.
Why is he even on the team? It's kind of sad. So I think, especially in garbage time, they're going to get schooled in the paint. And I think David West is certainly in a good spot.
Dude sucks, man. Yeah, he does.
He sucks, dude. And he's not good anymore.
Tommy would say he's a garbage human. That's what Tommy would say.
Garbage fucking
human. Yeah. He's a dumpster fire human, man. The dude is bad, dude.
No defense whatsoever.
Zero.
So let's go to the center position. Again, this year on DraftKings, center is going to be, fairly easy to fill with the multi. It seems like everyone's a power forward center nowadays. So let's kick over to FanDuel on this analysis for this, since just center specific. I mean, we're looking at Powell at the top, and then it's Gobert, Plumlee, Noah, Tristan Thompson. Where are you going here, Thad?
Oddly enough, I'm going to go with Rudy Gobert. I for some reason, I think most people are going to gravitate toward Powell because he's easy to fit in. 7,600, he's still easy to fit in, but I think that's a mistake. It takes a while for players to kind of get used to this San Antonio philosophy. You saw it last year when Aldridge came over. It took him a while. It wasn't until after the All-Star break that he really started tearing it up. Powell's usage is going to go down. They're not going to need him to be the guy like he was in Chicago. He's going to be a defensive liability at points, so they're going to end up putting Dwayne Dedmon in there to kind of maybe do some stoppage. So I think without Favors, Gobert takes a nice step up in usage, so he's my dude on FanDuel at 6,200.
Jeff, who's your favorite center?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. I think that he's pretty much the biggest lock of the slate, no doubt. He is priced to where he's maybe $2,500 cheaper than he should be, in my opinion. Especially with Favors out, he's going to get all that extra usage. In the preseason, he absolutely dominated. In the offseason, he worked on his offensive game. He even was hitting like free throws at a 90% clip at one point. He's just the lock of a play today, in my opinion. It would take like 20-something lineups for me to start differentiating outside of Rudy Gobert, I think. So I'm going to have...
Just to say, what about DraftKings? Because it looks like he's very underpriced on FanDuel relative to Pau Gasol, but looking at it, he's actually more expensive than Pau on DraftKings. Do you have the same feel there?
Same feeling. I mean, like I said, if he's $2,500 priced on $2,500 underpriced on FanDuel, he's still good. Yeah, so I'm gonna have way more than the field of Gobert, I think, and I recommend people do the same. He certainly should be the first guy you plug into your cash game lineups, and you want more than the field, in my opinion.
Which means Gobert will definitely get 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes today. If we
that's how these shows work. Yeah.
That bastard. I'm so pissed off.
Whenever everyone agrees on a certain player, for 100% fact, everyone's going to remember why NBA is tilting about 2 minutes into the Rudy Gobert game. We do have some other options.
Yeah, why can't NFL be like that, where all the chalk fails?
Why can't the chalk fail ever in NFL? Like if you're winning money, I'm not calling you an idiot. I'm just saying there's a lot of idiots who are smashing right now. I did a serious show, and these guys calling I just started playing DFS 2 weeks ago, and I'm winning all the money every week. I'm like, because the chalk's not going to hit like this forever. So hopefully the chalk fails in NBA shortly. Just want to get to one or two questions before we finish up center. Question here is, about the forums. Can you guys open up forums? You will never see forums on a company I own. I promise you that. That will never happen. I don't give a fuck. And I'll tell you transparently why. Because you guys are fucking trolls. And all you do is go on there and fucking bitch about everything all day. I think forums are a fucking cancer to any site. And it's a nightmare to manage. Now, will we have chats? Yes, we will 100% have chat. We'll 100% have opportunities for you guys to ask us questions. We'll be doing kind of shows right before tip-off when Jeff and Thad go back and doing their lineups. We'll have some other guys, maybe even me, once we start going in, filling in and answering some questions up until tip-off lineup block. We're going to start that after November 1st, though, just for paid subscribers. So while we're free, we're going to kind of leave it at this, and then come November 1st, those of you that are subscribed, you're going to get a lot of direct access to guys like Jeff, Thad, myself, Benny. We'll be handling all that. But if you're looking for forums, you can go suck my dick because you will never see those here ever. It's a fucking troll factory. Fuck you guys. So anyone else at center?
I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm pretty much all in on Gobert. So I'd leave it to Thad.
Okay, Thad.
Yeah, I'm all in on Gobert, especially cash games. I think my pivot, my kind of low-owned $4 tournament pivot for tournaments.
Hold on. Okay, go.
I think I'm actually going to roll with Zaza Pachulia. First of all, a lot of people don't realize that he plays for Golden State now. I think even though from a defense point of view, he's a downgrade from Andrew Bogut, but daily fantasy, we don't give a shit about that. So I just talked about how weak front court is going to be in terms of defense, and we've seen Zaza can step it up on occasion. So I think this is how OKC beat the crap out of San Antonio in the playoffs. They attacked the front court, and dudes that don't usually dominate were dominating. For OKC, center and power forward. So I think Zaza's my cheap, low-owned center option.
And my Warriors, dude, Jeff, how much time on the court is Zaza going to see? Because I think in a game where you got a lot of guys who shoot on this team. It's literally Clay and Steph and Durant. There's a lot of people who are going to be chucking on this team here. So there should be a plentiful amount of rebounds. Just a matter of, are they going to go small a lot with Draymond at the 5? How much time on the court you think Zaza's going to see?
Around 20 minutes. They will want to go small a lot, especially since they definitely see great from Bogut. They went small less than they will this year, last year, because they really liked what Bogut brought to the table in terms of defense and everything. He was like literally a top 3 guy at protecting the rim. Zaza's not that. He did pretty well in the beginning of the season last year on defense, on the ball defense, but really took a drop off, and then wasn't even in the top 20 or so, I would say. So I think a long way to answer your question is I think they're going to go small a lot, and he's good for maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah. Anyone else there, Thad? Anyone you see? Jeff? Either you guys? I know, Jeff, I know you're all at Gobert, but that's pretty much it, right?
Outside of game stacks and stuff, I'm going to have Gobert. So.
Okay, so now, listen, we don't have to cut it at 6 ever. That's the nice thing. We don't have another show right after this, so we could always run it a little bit over. But if we're looking now, so let me ask you guys a little bit of a game theory question as far as – actually, why don't we do this first? I have 2 questions for you. Let's start with ownership percentage. So who do you think will be the 3 highest owned guys in the $4 mega donkey tournament, Jeff? What do you think? Or they don't have to be in order, but who do you think are 3 or 4 guys who are going to be uber chalk?
Anderson, Steph Curry, Rudy Gobert.
Okay. Dad, anyone else out there that you think is going to be crazy chalk today?
I think Durant and LeBron, I think because of the value options, you can roster pretty much whoever you want. And it's hard to make a lineup without at least 3 of those 4 guys that we mentioned. So they'll all be heavily owned. Yeah.
So, and then as far as who do you think would be, like a low owned guy? Because obviously on a 3 game slate, it's really hard to get anyone at 3% owned because, there's just so few options that there's always going to be someone on a couple people here. Who do you guys, who's your favorite $4 flyer? Let me put it that way. So Thad,
for me,
Thad,
is it per position or just in general?
Yeah, just in general. Just 1 or 2 of your favorite, long shots.
I think Al-Farouq Aminu. I don't think a lot of people are going to have him. He's a low-owned guy. I think in general, just kind of game theory related, in general, the first week or 2 for NBA, easy to pick some low-owned guys. Just go for the guys that are on a new team that people don't know that people don't for NBA.
Right.
You know, they do my MLB approach. I wait till stuff gets started, and then I learn where the guys are on the team. So guys like George Hill, new team, you know, stuff like that. Those guys are going to be low-owned because nobody knows that they're even playing tonight.
Right. Jeff, a couple darts.
I would go with David West, and then maybe Patty Mills. I think that those are a couple guys that are going to go low and have some upside.
Okay, and does that have anything to do with your bias that you think Golden State's going to win this game by 5,000?
No, man, I'm loading up on the starters there. I've got Durant, Curry a lot. So
okay, no, I was saying Patty Mills. So all right, cool.
Well, Patty Mills is going to play a lot.
He'll play a lot of minutes
because
anyway.
of the injuries, I think. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then any advice on game stacking? I saw a question on it, Jeff, as far as whether you think that's a good move in NBA. You know, when you would use that.
I use some form of it every slate if I'm doing more than 10 to 20 lineups. I think that, I did a whole strategy article that kind of breaks down how to approach it. But to sum it up, I guess look for correlation plays, like good pick and roll combos from one side of the team, and then on the other side of the game, take a few players that aren't taken away from each other. In other words, don't go after like the 3 highest scorers or something, because it's unlikely that all 3 of those guys are going to go off. But on a short slate like this, you can do pretty much anything.
Yeah, anything
just
goes.
pray for overtime or something.
Yeah, Thad, you do a lot of game stacking, Thad, normally? I know not tonight specific, but normally.
Yeah, normally I do. I mean, you know, when it comes to Vegas and Vegas totals and stuff, you know, they're pretty spot on. So I do that a lot. I think one thing that I used to try to get cute to do, which I highly advise against, is trying to stack a game because I think it might go into overtime.
That's a Tommy G move.
I'm not good at that.
I'm not good at it.
You get success at it, man. I don't know how you do that. That's why I call you Nostradamus, man. You got that. I don't know, man. Between the NBA game stacking and the hockey and all that other shit, man. Nostradamus in the house, bro.
I'm data retarded, but I do have a good gut and some good instincts. So, I had a run last year, Jeff. I had a run where I was on Sirius Radio, and Dad, you might have heard. Well, I literally called overtime like 5 games in a row, like in a week.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was my biggest week in NBA history. I was just game stacking over, and then I like missed it for like a month and a half. But.
Oh, dude, the most embarrassing point of my NBA career. You and I had the same lineup, same game stack in a queue. I'm Tommy G. That's who I am. Oh man.
Oh God, I fucking hate you so much. I hate that we're in your world here on these videos. You know, like we're in NBA world. Like I'm not at home. I'm looking at. Let's see, like, people behind me and shit. Like, wait till we get on a football or baseball podcast where I could actually battle. I'm afraid to go at you in this zone. I'm like, let me be nice to Jeff so I don't get my fucking head chopped off in front of everybody. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So, you know, quick 3-game slate. Hopefully, give you guys a lot of information. I see a lot of you on Twitter going, "Can you go back and talk about, you know, shooting guard or this?" Just because it's a live stream, it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to disappear. It's still going to be there. So you could still go back, right, Jeff? This will still be up on the site.
This will be on demand. You'll be able to find that for sure.
Yeah, so you guys can go once we log off here in a minute, and you can go back and, you know, go to the shooting guard section. But I will answer the question since there was one of them out there for you guys. Said, missed the shooting guard discussion. Thompson or McCollum? So just pick one, Jeff. Thompson or McCollum? I think you're on Team Thompson.
For me, it's Thompson, yeah.
Yeah. Thad, what about you?
For me, it's McCollum, but Thompson is my number 2.
Okay. I'll break the tie with McCollum just because I hope Jeff dies. So I'm going to start with that. Yeah. We're going to end on that note. Good luck. Stay cashing, fuckers. Shut it down, Jeff. Still says live, so fucking just close it out.
All right, later, dude.